Are live. Hello, hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. We have for another great presenter for the Global Grief Conference 2023. Today we have my dear friend Claire, and she is a second time presenter. So she was presenting last year at Global Grief Conference, and she's presenting again this year. And she's bringing the smoke, you guys. She's educating people, and she's laying it all out on the table for you. So I want to introduce my friend Claire. How are you doing today?
I am doing great, blessed and lucky, like I say every day, Tony.
Yes, yes, yes.
Um, yes, and so I am the owner and founder of Miriam's Well Healing, and you can heal your grief.com. And so I've been working fully online since 2020, but I've been in practice for 15 years. And I focus on grief and trauma because folks say, do what you know, and that's what I come from. And so I like to speak authentically to that experience because I think being heard and understood from someone who's been there is a really important part of the healing process. So that's what I like to bring to the table.
Now you presented last year at last year's conference. Now,
Yep.
what did you present on at last year's conference?
A lot of points about demystifying and destigmatizing the grief and trauma healing, the grief and trauma itself, but also the healing process. I think it's a mystery to lots of folks. Why am I reacting this way?
Right.
And what do I do with all of the things that I'm being told or the things that I believe? What's true? What's not true? How do I get help? Who do I trust? All of that gets jumbled up in our heads before we even ask for help. So I like to try to tease those things out and go, here's what you can bank on, and here's what you can maybe put by the wayside, and here's what the process looks like, and here's how to move forward with that.
Now you bringing a really interesting topic to the conference for this year,
Yeah.
dealing with grief or trauma as in the workplace, correct?
Yes, absolutely. We all work somewhere, and so work and life intermingle constantly every day. And of course, when whether you are self-employed or whether you're an employee or whether you're an entrepreneur, at whatever level of the work world that you sit at, grief and trauma will happen. You will have a loss. There will be a health crisis. Something may happen in the workplace. However that looks, it's going to happen eventually. And how the workplace responds under those circumstances really, really matters. Pretty much every grief or trauma story that I hear, in some measure, talks about how the workplace responded either well or poorly or terribly. And some of them can be pretty terrible. And so, yeah, and when you have a shocking event happen, whether it's a loss or a traumatic event, it really sets you off balance and sets everything sideways. Your memory, your focus, your physical health, your eating, your sleeping, everything can go completely off the rails. Well, that of course affects your work. And so when, say, the bereavement policy at your work demands that you be back in the office in 3 days, that's not only unreasonable, that can really be cruel if you're dealing with something that's catastrophic.
Right.
You've lost a parent, if you've lost a child, if you've lost a pregnancy, if you've had a tangle with the legal system, if you've had a diagnosis that's terrifying, all of these life-changing things, but work wants you to just plop back in and act like nothing has happened. And that's just not how it works. So all of these things intermingle. So I really want to talk about in my presentation at the conference, how all of those layers work and how we can make them better. I always tell the story about when my stepmother passed away in 2006. I had to think about it. In 2006, and I was working at a Wall Street firm in New York, And I had time off, paid time off, but using up vacation days and all of that. And it took about, my recollection is it took about 3 weeks for me to get back in the office, because I had to peel my father off the ceiling and manage the affairs of the household, because he was destroyed and he couldn't manage anything. So I had to take over and do all sorts of things. And so my life got completely upended. And this was in a different state, so there was a lot of travel. And by the time I got back to the office, I had completely lost track of, did I have sick days, vacation days? What exactly did I use? Did I have anything left? I had no idea. So I went down to the HR department and I asked, I said, hey, can you help me out? Because this has been nuts, and I've lost track of how many days off. And instead of saying, oh, sure, yes, I'm so sorry for your loss. Here, let's sit down and figure this out. Nope. She bawled me out for being irresponsible for losing track of my days off. I said, I'm sorry, excuse me? Yeah, she acted like it was a terrible inconvenience for her to sit and try to figure that. Well, you had this many days and you should have kept track, and why didn't you write this down? And I went, oh, okay, it's like that. All right. And that was one of my first inklings that I didn't want to stay at that company anymore. And I've since collected so many stories of people who are expected to still be on call when they are in cancer treatment, or when they have a family member in hospice. Why aren't you checking your emails? Excuse me? So it's just the inhumane treatment in a human situation has a lot of consequences. And I always want to go with the idea we can do better than this. And bereavement, we talk about sick days and we talk about vacation, but bereavement policies are lacking deeply behind all of these other things. Like, oh, our bereavement policy is so generous. We offer 4 days. Wow, that's more than 3. But if you're talking about something that upends your life,
right,
that's nowhere near adequate. Not to mention that in Jewish tradition, you're required to follow the mourning period for 7 days. So you're already out of luck there.
Right.
And that's just for losses. If you're talking about traumatic events, folks don't even bring that into the equation. And there are a lot of companies that will just sort of pretend like it didn't happen, or, well, that's over. Get back to work. No.
That doesn't work.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. Speaking from experience, when I was working for a trash company, my son passed away. They said you got 2 weeks, right? And honestly, I went back to work after that 2 weeks, and I ended up in a hospital 2 months later, right?
Well, there you go.
Yeah, and I ended up in the hospital, and then from there, it just wasn't enough time. And so they got mad at me because I ended up, after I got out the hospital, like 2 weeks after that, I took off, and I took maybe about 14 days. I went to a whole different state and was like, I'm not doing it. I just can't do it. I came back and they threatened to fire me. I said, well, you go ahead and fire me. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
And then, when my mother passed away, the same thing happened. They were like, well, we expect you to come to work. I said, how do you expect me to go to work? And when all of these things have happened. So that's why I'm really interested in seeing your presentation. Like I said, folks, she is bringing the smoke, man. She is laying it out on the table for your employers out there. Please pay attention, because this is detrimental to your employees, to take care of them, to make sure that they're doing well and things like that. Because if you make sure that they're doing well and they have the time to actually grieve and wrap their head around these things, it helps them help you, right?
Exactly. Your employees are your most important asset.
Mm-hmm.
And you can build loyalty or you can build resentment.
Mm-hmm.
Pick one. And you might think you're helping your bottom line, but ultimately it's going to cost you your talent. It's going to cost reputation. These things have leveled up in the last couple of years. And a lot of folks are saying, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm sorry. I'm putting my health first. I'm putting my family first. I put a call out on my social media asking folks, what have you dealt with? And I got back some just terrible stories. Wow. Terrible stories of people who got let go from their job 2 days after their father died. I'm like, what? Did they know what happened? Oh, yeah, they sent flowers and then they fired me. I'm like, oh, yes. I'm confused. It's heartbreaking and really short-sighted.
Very true.
Yeah.
That's very true. And I'm, like you said, I've seen it on both ends. I've seen it on both ends. I have seen employees try to do better, but I don't think they really understand the steps that they should take to help their employees. So, what would you recommend to an employee how to take those necessary steps to help their employer?
Well, this is one of the things that I'm talking about at the conference is self-care. Mm-hmm. Self-care is always the first thing that goes out the window, mm-hmm. and the most important thing to get back in place. As far as employers, that's kind of on a company by company basis, mm-hmm. but that's part of what I'm building out a new wing of my practice to be able to guide companies through that process. How big is their company? What are their needs? What are their resources? What are they willing to do? Do they really understand what's at stake here? To really plug into what their employees need instead of being performative about it. Because if you're really that concerned about your bottom line, it doesn't do you any good to chew folks up and spit them out. So how to help yourself, how to help a colleague who's going through something, that's always a question I get because the office environment is weird. The boundaries are totally different, right? That's so, so how do I help my colleague who just lost their mother? What do I say? What do I not say? Right? Often just as important. What do I not say? And then talking through some options that companies might consider, just as a rough draft, pieces of the puzzle. But really, just the number one thing has to be compassion. Has to be compassion. Compassion for ourselves, compassion for one another, because we're all on a human journey. And as soon as you take a human tragedy and expect someone to act like a robot, you've already lost.
Yeah, I think it's just down to employees. And that's speaking from experience. Like, they shut me down cold hard. They shut me down and was like, we need to get you back in the truck. And I tried to explain it to him. This is before I got into doing this work. I tried to explain it to him. I'm like, I can't even think straight.
Of course not.
I can't even think straight. I've just, this is what I've just experienced. And it wasn't like they didn't know or anything like that. Most of them showed up to the funeral, right? And even with that being said, here's one of the things that they did. They didn't bring me flowers, but they brought me a jar of people. The rest of my colleagues that I worked with put money into a jar, and they brought it to my house and go, "Oh, this will help you out with your bills for right now." But really, when it came down to the employer, really nothing. They were like, "So we'll see you Monday, right?"
Oh my gosh!
They were like, "So we'll see you Monday." Like we had the funeral that weekend, that Saturday, and my boss came to me afterwards and said, "So we're going to see you Monday, bright and early. I think you're going to be okay." So they began to dictate what I was feeling, right?
Yeah.
Which I'm a rebel. I'm a rebel. I said, you know what? I got something for you. And then when I ended up in the hospital, when I got out, I said, you know what? I'm gone. And I just disappeared on them,
So I
wanted to see how much they cared. And they really didn't care. They really didn't, but I did take some time to myself though. And I try to tell other employers, make sure you don't do what my job did to me, because you will have more people leaving you
Yeah,
because you're not allowing them the time. You're not giving them the things that they need to process this grief, you know,
exactly.
or either tell them, put yourself in that situation,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
exactly. And it's always astonishing how little humanity can be shown to someone in the midst of something. I mean, you lost your child, and they still didn't have enough human in their soul to say, "Hey, man, what do you need? How can we
Right.
help?" They started to lecture you, right? Yeah. Oh, you must be done now. You must be over that.
Right.
Over that. Really? The death of a child? Really? No, no.
Apparently,
That's
that's
not
what
how
we
that
do.
works. I know.
Apparently, that's what we do. And so, looking at it from both ends, I'm definitely looking forward to it. And I have a few employers that I want to have them come and watch the conference, but pay attention to what's being said, especially
Yeah,
during your presentation, because I think it would help them have like Ada just put up here, have more empathy towards their employees, right? To make sure that their mental health is good. Because the
yeah,
last thing that we need, is to have people try to take their own lives, right? Feeling as if if your job don't care, and we go back to work because we have bills and stuff to pay.
yeah. So it's making you make a choice
Hmm.
between your sanity, really. For a lot of folks, it feels like that versus your livelihood.
Hmm.
Unacceptable choice.
Yeah.
Unacceptable choice, because there you will get to a breaking point, as your story demonstrates. I had someone a couple weeks ago contact me for a first session. She had so much on her plate. She had never dealt with her mental health. She's like, "Yeah, I need somebody to talk to about this." And she started listing all the things that she had and all of the losses and tragedies and difficulties. Um, and she made an appointment, emailed me the next day, and said, "I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to cancel. I've been taken to the hospital with cardiac issues." The next day, I went, "Oh, yeah. Please get back in touch with me when you can, because clearly your body is sending you a warning sign.
Right.
And if you're lucky enough to get one of those, you want to listen to it, because the body will only give so many of those. So my question for the employers out there is, do you want to make it better, or do you want to make it worse? You want to make it harder, or you want to make it easier? So, and all of that affects your company. It affects your bottom line. It affects your reputation. It affects the type of talent that you're going to attract and be able to retain. So, it's not, some frippity dippity thing. It's the reality of being human. So
Very true.
let's plug into that instead of, well, what happened to you?
Now, what day will you be presenting on? What day and time will you be presenting on?
I will be presenting on April 30th. So that'll be the Sunday. If I'm not mistaken, I took the 2 o'clock spot, I
Yeah.
think.
So that'd be 2 o'clock Mountain Time and 4 o'clock Eastern Time, right?
4 o'clock Eastern time. That is correct. And I'll have a PowerPoint with all sorts of facts and figures and ideas and all that sort of thing. So I hope to be giving a lot of information and try to make this process a little bit better.
Right. Now, for those who will be watching you, what can they expect to take away from your presentation?
I would hope that they come up with some ideas that maybe they can take to their employers, as well as being able to look at their own lives and realizing that just because your boss may dictate something, if your life and your health is telling you otherwise, that you have every right and opportunity to put your self-care first, because it's not worth landing in the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Definitely.
tools and truths and ideas are what I always like to bring for my presentations.
Okay. And
Yeah.
how can people get a hold of you?
My website is You Can Heal Your Grief. I am principally on Facebook and LinkedIn, so you can find me there. I also have a book on the first week of loss. That's called Putting Out the Fire. That is also available on my website. And I'll be offering online support to anybody in any time zone. So through the miracle of Zoom. So I'm happy to support someone who's ready to step into their healing and not carry so much weight on their heart and on their spirit. There are answers to these things, but folks don't know how to get. That's why I focus on the demystifying and the destigmatizing. Is there's all sorts of myths that are stuck in our heads and all sorts of stigmas that we get from our families and our cultures, and how to actually get to how do I ask for help? Who do I trust? And what should that experience look like? What actually works? What really promotes the healing process? And what you can kind of disregard and move on to something that might be a little bit more useful. So it's all about telling the truth. It's all about telling the truth and tools that actually work.
Nice, very nice. Now, if you had any words to give the viewers right now, and those who will be viewing it later, what would you tell them?
Keep looking, keep asking questions, get curious about what's possible. Because I have seen some folks who thought there was no hope
Mm-hmm.
make miraculous changes in their lives, in their health, in their families. And don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up.
I definitely love it. And for you folks that are tuning in right now, I am Tony Lynch. I am the host of this year's Global Grief Conference 2023. And as I said before, we have some amazing presenters. Claire is one of those amazing presenters. So check her out. You guys know what to do. You know how to find. We got the links for you to register for the conference. We have a QR code. Also, if you haven't already, go check out the YouTube channel. We have a lot more stuff coming for you. And until next time, you guys, we love you. Thank you for allowing us to support you. Save the date, April 28th, April 29th, and April 30th. We're bringing people from all walks of life for you. And so this is all about you. It's all about your healing. It's all about educating you. It's all about supporting you and providing those resources for you. So as always, thank you for allowing us to do what we do best, which is making sure that you are on the path to true healing. And until next time, you guys keep your head up.